Hi guys, it is evening time, so I am in my maternity robe, which, by the way, if you are pregnant and you are tossing up between getting a maternity robe or not, you 100% should, because they are so comfy and the amount of material is way more than a standard robe, so it fits around your belly. And I currently have a very big belly, and I know that it's going to get bigger as I get further along, and I know I'll be safe. I'll be safe from the gap that you get when your dressing gown doesn't fit properly, your robe doesn't fit properly. I decided to do a vlog on my previous birth stories. I have basically my birth stories written down, so if you notice that I'm looking down a lot, it is because I'm just reading my notes. My two births have, it's been a while since I gave birth. My oldest was almost 4 years ago, and my youngest was almost 3 years ago, so quite a while. So I have got my notes all written down, so if I am looking down quite a bit, it's just because I am going over the notes. Basically, I'll just say to begin with that both of my labours were completely different. Well, my labours and my birth experiences were completely different. The first being a hospital birth, which was full of bright lights and surgeons and a team of 10 people in there, very sterile, very what you imagine surgery to be like, basically, even though I didn't have surgery. It was like that compared to my second birth, which was only 13 months later, so just over a year later, and that was in a birthing suite, and it was the middle of the day and the curtains were closed because I wanted it to be dim lights, and my music was playing next to me, and I was in the pool, and everything was just a lot more natural, a lot smoother, everything like that. So I will get into my birth stories. I did decide to get my book and go over the notes as I am telling you my birth stories. Otherwise, I will be rambling on for a very long time, and this whole vlog will end up being about an hour long. So I will begin with Max, because he was my firstborn. Max, it was an extremely drawn out process. I spent 2 nights in hospital at 34 weeks pregnant because I was having contractions, and they were obviously worried that I was going to go into labour and have him early. I didn't, obviously. I didn't have him early. They were able to stop the contractions, and once they discharged me, I was on temporary bed rest until at least 37 weeks, when I entered the safe zone. Basically, we don't have a hospital where we live. The hospital is in the city across from us, which is about an hour away. We only have a birthing centre or a maternity ward here, so you cannot birth before 37 weeks here. You have to go to the hospital over in the city if you go into labour before 37 weeks, or if you need to have a C-section or an induction or anything like that. Or if you're high risk, you have to go to the hospital in the city. You've got no choice. It's only low risk births that are after 37 weeks that can be done here. Basically, because it's not a hospital here, which means there are no surgeons, there are no doctors, nothing. It's literally a space with a few rooms in it that is run by midwives. And they're not doctors, they're not surgeons, they can't do anything like that. if you go into labor and you go there because you plan on birthing here, and then something goes wrong, you need to be transferred over to the hospital an hour away. So, you know, that wouldn't be ideal. You wouldn't want to be doing that, you know, having to go over an hour away in an ambulance while in labor. That would just be horrible. So everyone was pretty surprised that I made it to my due date without giving birth, let alone going as far overdue as I did. I was due on the 3rd of October 2015, and he wasn't born until the 18th of October, so it was a long time to wait, long time extra to wait. On October the 17th, which was my husband's birthday and also my dad's birthday, I was exactly 2 weeks overdue, and sorry, I have to stretch my leg out a little bit. I'm getting cramps. I was 2 weeks overdue, so I had to go over to the hospital, and at 10 a.m. they did an internal just to decide which form of induction that was going to be best suited for me. I was 5 centimeters dilated, although not in labor at that stage, so they decided to just break my waters and see how I go. And luckily for me, really, that started it. So I didn't have to, you know, go through any of the other things and then wait ages to see if it was working, and, you know, that just would have been terrible. But unfortunately, when they broke my waters, it threw my birth plan out the window, because I wanted to have a water birth. But when they broke my waters, it was discovered that there was meconium in my waters. Basically, Max had done a poo in my belly, and that meant that Max had to be monitored constantly via a wire that they screwed into his head and then taped to my thigh, so that I was able to still get up and walk around. So I didn't have to like be confined to the bed, but I still had to be very careful. I obviously couldn't go in the water because I had wires and everything connected to me, but I was still able to go to the toilet and walk around, and yeah, basically 10 minutes after they broke my waters, my contractions started, and they were nothing like I was expecting. Basically, I was sort of under the impression that, you know, waters break or waters don't break, either way, whatever way your labour does start, you start feeling contractions, and then they build up in intensity, and then you start getting really, really bad contractions. So all of a sudden it's like, yeah, we've got to go to the hospital. Well, I was already at the hospital. But no, 10 minutes after they broke my waters, it was all on. It was agonizing contractions from the very, very first contraction, and it was insane. And I fully understood why people said that, you know, basically once your waters break, your contractions are a lot stronger than they would be before your waters break. My current midwife, actually, I think it was my current midwife, she explained to me that before, I do have a pillow. This pillow is your waters. This is your body. This is your waters, which is like a hot water bottle because it's like a sack full of water, basically. This is your baby's head. When you have contractions and everything tightens and like hurts, there's still like a soft little cushion between them. Then once your waters break, it's literally just like, you know, bang, stronger contractions. And that's usually why once your waters have broken, your contractions are a lot stronger than beforehand, if you even experienced contractions beforehand. Anyway, so this was at this stage, it would have been not long after 10 a.m. By 4 p.m., I felt that I was ready to push. So my midwife said that I could, get off the side of the bed and squat if that was comfortable for me, because laying down was not comfortable whatsoever. That wasn't really doing anything, and it was actually really hurting my legs because I was squatting, so it was like a massive workout. My midwife suggested maybe going onto the toilet. She explained that a lot of people actually gave birth while sitting on the toilet, because it's just like when you sit down, your body just naturally sort of opens itself up a little bit more, and then you can give birth. Didn't work. By 8 p.m. I was totally exhausted. I was in so much pain, and I had been asking for an epidural for a while, but they just wouldn't give me an epidural. I still, to this day, do not know why they would not give me an epidural. Like, they never explained anything. They just ignored my requests, basically. But they did eventually give me remifentanil. Now, that was an experience in itself. One of the side effects is basically that you fall asleep and you forget to breathe. It lowers the levels of oxygen in your blood, so you have to be closely monitored the whole time, and when your levels do drop, an alarm goes off, and generally whoever is around, whoever's closest to you when this alarm is going off, has to sort of slap you and tell you to breathe, because you've obviously forgotten to breathe, because it just, yeah. 10 p.m. they started Pitocin, because they discovered that I was actually stuck at 9 centimeters. So, and yeah, by that stage they had actually taken the remifentanil off me, because I kept falling asleep and I wasn't doing what my body was kind of telling me to do. I wasn't, I was sleeping. I wasn't waking up during contractions and everything. I completely lost the urge to push. It was just gone. Even once they had taken the remifentanil off me, I still didn't have that urge to push, because I was just that exhausted. Most of that time is a blur, and it was just basically a blur of people yelling at me, telling me that I wasn't doing it right, threatening to get a surgeon in, which by that point was all I wanted, because I was just like, get this baby out. Just before midnight, they ended up calling the surgeon, but he didn't arrive until 1 a.m. because that's just what surgeons do. They just, I don't know. He was asleep. He was at home. He was asleep. And then he had to obviously get ready and come down. They should have called him a lot sooner, but they didn't. So he got there at 1 a.m. He took one look and basically said, this baby is not coming out on his own. Well, where the hell were you like 9 hours ago? Literally, because by this stage I had been pushing for about 9 hours. I had had all the pain relief taken off me. I hadn't eaten since like 6:30 a.m. the day before. But they told me that they would have to do an assisted delivery. So it was either forceps or vacuum or suction. And they opted for the vacuum. They did tell me that it had to be done quickly. Basically, that was one of the reasons why they opted for the vacuum. Max's heart rate was all over the place. It was dropping, it was rising. There were now like 10 odd people in the room setting up, getting ready to take him away, because they were just really concerned about him. And yeah, then without being told, without any form of pain relief or anything like that, they performed an episiotomy. Now, that in itself was one of the worst things about the birth. Like, they could have at least warned me that it was going to happen, but it was literally like, it was just in a split second, I felt myself like go cold, and if you could feel colours, like I felt white. And I just looked up at my mum and I was just like, what the hell was that? And she had tears in her eyes and she's like, it's just the baby, it's just the baby. Sorry. She was just like, it's just the baby, it's fine, it's fine, you're gonna be fine. And then I tried to like look, sit up a bit and look, and I noticed that there were scissors on the table, and I knew then and there that they had cut me. But yeah, at 1:24 a.m. on the 18th of October, so it was 42 weeks and 1 day, Max was born. He was weighing 10 pounds 5 ounces, so he was a big boy. He was very tall as well. Basically, they were pulling him out, they put him on my chest, and he was up on my chest and his feet were still in me. Like, that's how actual long he was. And afterwards it was just like they finally numbed me down there so they could stitch me back up. And it was probably like 15 minutes later and I was just like, when are they taking him? And then I noticed that no one was in the room, because he came out and he was fine. So that was obviously the best outcome that could have happened. Would 100% change the labour and birth experience with him, but wouldn't change overall the fact that I have him. So, you know, things happen. Ava, on the other hand, was a much more blissful experience. So a couple of days past 37 weeks, I had my first stretch and sweep, or membrane sweep, whatever you refer to it as. I had been closely monitored throughout my whole pregnancy, getting scans and everything like that. Because Max was so big, they were concerned that she was also going to be a big baby. I had 3 sweeps all up, the last being the day before she was born. My midwife, which I must point out was a different midwife than my last, and is actually the midwife I have gone for again this time around, because she was just bloody amazing. She basically told me at that last stretch and sweep to expect her to come either that night or the next day. She checked me and she was, sorry, TMI, she was basically just like, how the hell have you not gone into labour? Like, you, I think I was 3 centimetres, and she said, my fingers aren't even up your cervix yet, and I can feel your waters bulging. So she created a bit of a weak spot on my waters, just that, like, in hopes that it would just break naturally. But yeah, so that was actually at 5 p.m. That was a late one. I called my nana, who lives 3.5 hours away, and she came down pretty much straight away, stayed at my mum's house because she knew it was going to happen that night or the next day. I had my bloody show. Yeah, remember, this is TMI. This is the birth stories. At about 11 o'clock that night, and I went to bed. I was having little niggles here and there, but I wasn't thinking anything of it. I was just like, I'm going to need to sleep. So on the 23rd of November 2016, we went for a long walk in the morning with Max. We knew basically that today was going to be the day that she would be born. I was having like weird fluttering feelings while walking, but it was nothing bad at all. Once we got home, Max went down for a nap. My husband and I played Mario Kart for a couple of hours. I started just like on the side, just timing the feelings that I was getting, because I did notice they were getting a little bit stronger. They still were nothing painful, so I was timing them, but I was like, this is, you know, most likely just early labour. Just before lunchtime, so just before 12 o'clock, my waters broke, and I texted my midwife, and we had arranged to meet up at maternity at 1 p.m. 1 p.m. pretty much came around, and I cried like a baby having to say goodbye to Max, because I had never been away from him for a night or anything. He had only just turned 1, and it all of a sudden dawned on me that that was the last time I would ever see him as my baby, and as an only child, and that the next time I see him, he would be a big brother. And yeah, that on top of the fact I'd never been away from him for a night, and I was like, I'm going to be away from him for a night. I should have prepared myself more for that. Anyway, when we were leaving, I spoke to a couple of older ladies outside, and they were actually like, oh, you look like you're ready to pop. And I'm like, well, actually, I'm in labor and I'm on my way to, give birth, so I better get going. One of the worst things that could have happened on that day was the fact that there were roadworks on the main road, so we had to do a detour. It wasn't that much of a detour. Like, the maternity ward from our home was probably about a 5-minute drive away. Turned it into like a 10-minute drive. Nothing crazy. Michael started stressing because he was just worried that we wouldn't make it there in time, but I was like, oh, it's not going to happen that quickly. I had 3 very, 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 very big contractions between the car park and the doors of maternity. And that now I know is when I plan on going to maternity this time around. I was able to have my water birth. I got in the pool. I was offered the Gasonier, but I was just using that periodically, as I found watching the water ripples from my breathing best for calming me down. So when I was like in the middle of a contraction, when I would breathe out, I'd see the water ripples, and that was actually very therapeutic for me. The whole experience was amazing. Obviously I was in a lot of pain because you're in labor, but it was not invasive. My midwife heard my previous birth story, literally every single appointment that I had with her throughout my whole pregnancy. She had read all the birth notes and everything. She knew how invasive it actually was, and we had planned for a non-invasive birth this time around. So my mum had flannels that she was putting on my face. Michael was holding the gas for me in case I wanted to use it. My midwife just stood back and was like, you tell me when you're feeling a bit of pressure, and then you can just start pushing and we'll just see what happens. I pushed for half an hour and it was over. So at 2:44 p.m, an hour and 45 minutes basically from when we arrived, Ava made her swift entrance into the world. She was 9 pounds 6 ounces, slightly bigger than what we were kind of expecting, going by her weights throughout my pregnancy, keeping an eye on her. But she was tiny in our eyes, considering only a year before we had like a much bigger baby. She was born at 38 weeks and 5 days. I had a very small tear on my episiotomy scar, but it was nothing crazy. My midwife said that as long as I didn't cross my legs or do yoga in the next couple of weeks, then I would be able to get away without having any stitches or anything. I cried when Michael cut the cord because that's something that he wasn't able to do when I had Max because the surgeon did it. I cried again when I was able to walk to my room from the birthing suite without any help, because one thing I didn't mention is that during my labour with Max, I broke my tailbone, and for months afterwards I was having to go to physio. I could hardly sit down, hardly do anything, especially straight afterwards. I couldn't. Everyone was telling me to sit and relax. I couldn't sit. I was in so much agony. But yeah, I cried when I was able to walk an hour and a half after she was born, after I had a sandwich. I was able to walk to my room from the birthing suite. She was just an amazing baby. Michael had a cuddle with her once we got back to the room, and I was like, I'm going to have a shower. So I went and showered by myself without help. I did everything without help, and it was just an incredible experience. So yeah, no two births are the same. This time around, I am hoping that it's going to go as smoothly as Ava's. I have we haven't discussed a birth plan as of yet. But pretty much it's going to be the same as it was with Ava. I just want to stay at home and get through the first part of it at home where I'm comfortable by myself. And then when I feel those contractions that I remember feeling as soon as we got to the hospital, well, to the maternity ward when I was in labour with Ava, that's when I will go to the hospital or maternity ward. We literally live around the corner from the hospital, so it's literally just there, so it's not far at all, so I can afford to wait until then. And I would like to have another water birth because it was just the most amazing thing. If anyone wants to have a water birth or is contemplating having a water birth, I would 100% recommend it. Like I said, the whole experience was amazing from start to finish. You're going to be in pain because it's labour is one of the most painful things you'll ever experience in your life, but there are obviously ways that you can make your labour the most enjoyable and incredible experience that you can. And so I am hoping that everything goes as smoothly as it did last time with this little one, when this little one decides to make its presence known. It is 8:30 p.m. and that basically means it's my bedtime because I am pregnant and I don't deal good with evenings, considering my days always start at like 6 a.m. with the kids. So next vlog will be up in a few days hopefully, and yeah, I hope that you all enjoyed my story time and my birth stories, and I am looking forward to only in a few weeks time to be able to share my third birth story with you guys and see what similarities and what differences it has compared to my other two. So that weather is terrible outside and I'm just gonna go to bed and snuggle down and stay warm.